The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and assalamu alaikum everyone. I am Kashif Kamran. I hope all of you can hear me. If you can just confirm that. Okay, that's great. If you can all hear me and you can see the screen in front of you, right, which is the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, that's great. So, hello and assalamu alaikum everyone. I am Kashif Kamran and I welcome you all to the day 3 of the Advanced Audit and Assurance Practice to Pass webinar for March 2021 exams being organized by ACCA Pakistan. I hope over the last 2 days you had productive learnings and productive insights on the area of audit risk and on the area of ethical, professional, and quality control matters, which we were discussing yesterday. Now, today is the day 3, another very exciting day, because today I will be discussing with you a very, very important topic, which is a core topic of the Advanced Audit and Assurance paper. So the agenda for day 3 is to look at audit report, which is a very, very important area. And I hope all of you are clear that in section B, one of the question has to be from syllabus area E, which is basically the audit report. And I will be explaining you within the constraint of 3 hours, the more important things which you should know about audit report. Right, so we have an important agenda today, right? Now, just before starting with the agenda for day 3, just a confirmation that my voice is clear to all of you. Right, thank you. Okay, now starting on with the agenda and starting on with the day 3, let's see what we have in store for day 3. Now, the day 3 is all about audit report, a fundamental area for the AAA syllabus and a very important area where the students should be very good at. Now, just like the last 2 days, I will be guiding you about the right strategy to prepare for this topic. I did guided you about the way you should prepare for audit risk, and I did guided you about the way you should prepare for ethical, professional, and quality control issues. In the same manner, I will be guiding you about how you should be preparing with this topic, the audit report. So let's start the journey. Now, first of all, you can benefit from my previous webinars on audit report. I am recommending you 3 of my previous webinars, which you should follow. September 19, you should follow this, June 19 and March 19. So ideally, alongside the March 21 webinar, which you are attending today, you should follow the 3 webinars recommended. So in all, that will be total of 4 with the webinar today, and that will give you an excellent knowledge and control on the syllabus area of reporting, and you will feel yourself more confident for the March 2021 exams. I hope you are following the previous webinars, right? Which I recommend you on a daily basis. So they're very, very important. Okay, now moving on from the previous webinars to watch on reporting, the agenda for day 3, a very, very important agenda. Just like the previous 2 days, the articles, again, the reinforcement of articles, because as a tutor, I believe articles are fundamental. Articles should take precedence over the textbook, and you should make a habit of reading the articles in these last few days before exam. 3 articles on your screen. I'll be guiding you what is the objective of each article in my session today. One article is the exam technique article part 5. I have already recommended the exam technique article 1 yesterday, and then I have recommended the exam technique article 2 on the first day. I hope you remember that. Now, this is the exam technique article part 5, which deals with audit report, how to write a good answer, technique article. The audit report article, a very fundamental article which tells you all about the audit report. And then there is an article about audit reporting, which tells you all about the key audit matter para. I hope you all know the key audit meta para is a very fundamental para in the audit report, and the examiner has written a separate article on key audit meta para with the title of Audit Reporting, and that really helps you build your knowledge on key audit meta. So 3 fundamental articles supporting the knowledge on audit report. I'll be doing the analysis of the examiner do's and don'ts from the examiner reports of the 2 questions I will be doing today. One is a very recent question, the September-December 20 question number 3, which came the last time, and then a September 18 question number 2A. So this will be the focus. The assignments will be you complete the questions which I will be doing in the live class. So I normally do 40 to 50% of the question in the live class, and the remaining you have to do yourself on the basis of the track which has been given to you by the tutor. And please do watch the previous webinars. So this is the agenda for the day 3. Now, just before I start on expressing my views on each one of them, I'm taking on my Word file as I do take for every day, and I shared them on the WhatsApp group. Now, the day 3 is about audit report. That's the agenda. And in terms of this agenda, again, I would start first with how to excel. How can you excel in the area of audit report? How you should go about building your concepts. So the very first thing you should do in terms of excelling in an audit report area is to build concepts. Now, just like ethics yesterday, uh, the same problem is with audit report. The problem with audit report is that the student have a lot of misconceptions about audit report. They have problems when to give an adverse opinion, when to give a qualified opinion, when to give a disclaimer of opinion, in what situations you give an emphasis of a meta paragraph, when to give a key audit meta, when to give the other meta paragraph in the audit report. You should know the concepts of report very well. So there is a need of a knowledge. There is a need for a knowledge, right? When you're preparing yourself for audit report. So build concepts need a lot of knowledge. So for this lot of knowledge, should you go to the textbook? I believe with this need a lot of knowledge, there is plenty of support. And with that plenty of support, you need not to go into the textbook. You have 3 articles to build up the concepts. So better you read the 3 articles recommended. If you read the 3 articles recommended, they will give you plenty of knowledge, which will build your concept in the right manner, which you can apply rightly in the exam paper. So I don't find the need of reading the book for reporting. If you have given your AA paper or your F8 paper very recently in the last 1 year or in the last 1.5 years perhaps, you have a very good reporting knowledge which you can make use of. So you read the 3 articles recommended, and again you have a prior carry forward knowledge. So that will help you. If any student has given F8 recently in the last 1 year, you have an excellent reporting knowledge which you can make use of, right? And any student who have given F8 over the last few years, then you need to build upon your knowledge by reading the articles. So build concepts, right? You need a lot of knowledge for reporting. I'll be guiding you about the lot of knowledge you need for reporting, but reporting is an area where you need knowledge, because if you have the right knowledge, you can apply that to a case study. So do you all agree with this? There is a greater need for knowledge in reporting, right? So you need to build on that. You need to build on that. I will be giving you areas where you should build upon knowledge during the course of my next 3 hours. But do you all agree that building concepts and building knowledge in reporting is very fundamental? So if you have a good knowledge in reporting, you can apply it. But if you are bad in knowledge, you might do a disaster in a reporting question. It is not like a risk question where everything is conceptual. Reporting question needs knowledge. If you have the right knowledge, you will apply that to a case study and you will gain marks. Otherwise, the reporting question can be a disastrous for you in exam paper. So I'll be guiding you what sort of knowledge you need over the next few hours. Now, once you build your concepts on the reporting, The next thing is to practice. And just like as I am guiding you since the last 2 days, that you have to practice the recent papers. I hope you're getting this message very clearly from this webinar, that if you are preparing yourself for the March 21 exams or for the June 21 exams, you need to focus on recent papers. A lot of time, students spend time on practicing very old papers. So you have the recent papers, the 6 recent papers. I hope I have been guiding you on that since the last few days now. 6 recent papers starting from September 18 and up to December 20. So these are total of 6 papers which you should practice. In every paper, will you get a reporting question? In every paper, will you get a reporting question, everyone? So how many reporting questions you have to practice? A total of 6. So 6 recent paper means you have 6 reporting questions, right? And these 6 reporting questions are wonderful for you. So if you practice the 6 reporting questions, you are super prepared for taking on a topic reporting in the March 21 exams. I would not prefer you do more than this. 6 reporting questions. Now, when you practice something which you like over the last 2 days, a concept which I have developed, self-appraisal, that you need to check your answer. And I hope you are now very clear with this, that how you check your answer. The answer you wrote at home, how would you do a self-appraisal of your answer? First, you reconcile your points with examiner points, from marking scheme. I hope you are affirmative on this now, and you started to follow this in the last 48 hours. So reconcile your points with the examiner points from the marking scheme, and then read the examiner report of the sitting. You have attempted the answer. You have attempted the answer. So to identify any weaknesses or issues raised by examiner, right? So I hope you like this concept of self-appraisal from day 1 to day 2 to day 3, and I believe you started to follow it. How many of you have started to follow this self-appraisal concept in the last 48 hours? And do you believe this self-appraisal concept is giving you the confidence? Because this is how you can come closer to the examiner mindset, right? And this is how you can develop a very good answer. So when you do the self-appraisal of your answer by reconciling your points or by reading the examiner report, this will become a source of learning. This will become a source of improvement, and that will help you excel on the day of exam, right? So this is how you should be going with audit report. How many articles to read for audit report? Quick answers. How many articles to read? No, how many articles to read? 3 articles, good. And how many papers to practice on reporting? A total of 6, and that is it. Now, knowledge. Where will you get knowledge? How will you get knowledge? Which areas you should have knowledge of? I'll be guiding you over the time span we have today, but you need to build your knowledge over the next few weeks on this area of audit reporting. Now, we have 2 questions to practice today, so I'll give them equal time so that you understand the exam requirement. So my agenda today is also not just my agenda is to give you a practice of the recent papers, which is important, practice of the recent papers. But more importantly, I'll be giving you the marking scheme. I will be giving you the way of reading a reporting requirement, way of reading the requirement. I believe students are very bad on it. They don't read the requirement very well, whether it is risk, whether it is ethical and professional issues, or whether it is reporting. You need to develop a habit of reading requirements carefully. And I'll be showing you that. A way of reading requirements is very important. The marking schemes is very important. The practice is very important. And then how to develop a point, how to develop a point for 1 mark, how you develop a point for 1 mark. This is very, very important, right? So that's the agenda, right? So let's move on to the agenda one by one. Now, first thing, knowledge. See, reporting is an area where you need a lot of knowledge. And if you have seen the past papers, carefully, in the past papers, you must have seen that there is a question which comes in the past paper, which I have attempted in the previous webinars, which I have recommended you. There is a question which you must have seen, which says critically appraise the draft audit report. I've covered that in the previous webinars, so when you watch them, you will cover them. I'm not covering this topic today. Critically appraise the draft audit report. Now, a question like such needs knowledge. Now, because when you're critically appraising the report given by the examiner, you need to find the flaws, you need to find the issues in the report. How would you find the issues in the report if you don't have knowledge? So do you agree? When you need to critically appraise the report given by the examiner, how would you critically appraise it? Unless and until you don't have the right knowledge. So if you are attempting a question, critically appraise the report, you need the right knowledge for it. You need the right knowledge about the complete audit report, You should have the right knowledge about opinions. You should have the right knowledge about the paragraphs, opinions, paragraphs in the audit report. There are so many things in the audit report, right? For a lot of students, the audit report is just an opinion. No, there are so many paragraphs in the audit report, right? Which you should have knowledge of. I'll be giving you an emphasis of that in a summarized manner quickly. But if you look at the past paper questions, a critical appraisal of a question demands a very good knowledge of the complete audit report. Even the structure of the audit report, what comes first, what comes second, because the examiner might even confuse you by putting the basis of opinion first and the opinion after. And if you have a sound reporting knowledge, you should know that opinion comes first, followed by basis. Do you agree? So if you are looking at a critical appraisal of a report where basis is given first and opinion is given after, will you criticize it? You will say, no, this is wrong because opinion comes first and basis comes after. So you should also know the order of things in the report, right? So you should know the structure of the report. You should know the structure of the report. You should know the order of things in report. So you need a lot of knowledge, which is in the examiner article. Next, now when you're preparing yourself for knowledge, you should have a sound knowledge on reporting in terms of the audit report format. You should have the right knowledge between what is a modified report and what is an unmodified report. You should have a right knowledge about the different types of opinions. You should have the right knowledge about the different types of opinions, the unqualified opinion and when to give it. You should have the right knowledge about the qualified opinion and when to give it. You should have the right knowledge about adverse opinion and when to give it. You should have the right knowledge about disclaimer of opinion and when to give it. I have covered them over my previous webinars, and again, you have to read the book, read the articles. You should know the different types of opinions. You should know the different types of reports, a modified report and an unmodified report. What's the difference between a modified report and an unmodified report? Different types of opinions. You should know the different paragraphs, the different paragraphs in audit report. You know there is a paragraph in the audit report known as material uncertainty relating to going concern, which is known as MURGC. So you should know when this paragraph is inserted in the audit report, when this paragraph comes in the audit report, what are conditions of this paragraph? You should know the conditions of these paragraphs. In what condition will you insert this paragraph in an exam paper? You should also know CAM, the key audit matters. You should know in what condition you will give a key audit matter in the exam paper. What situation in a case study will prompt you to give a key audit matter? When you are reading a case study, how would you know that I should give a key audit matter in the context of this case? So key audit matters, and you should know what situations give rise to CAM to help you in the exam paper. Then you should know about emphasis of a matter paragraph. When you give an emphasis of a matter paragraph, what are conditions of emphasis of a matter paragraph so you can judge that rightly in exam paper. You should know about the other meta paragraph, in what conditions you give the other meta paragraph. You should also know when to give the other information paragraph. In what condition in the case study will you give the other information paragraph? So you should know the opinions, you should know the paragraphs, you should know the difference between a modified report and an unmodified report. This is the knowledge. You have to check yourself whether you have the right knowledge about everything I wrote on the screen, because you need to exercise judgment. You need to exercise judgment when reading the case. You need to exercise judgment in reading case. That when you're reading a case on reporting, there might be so many problems in a reporting case, right? A, B, C, D. Now you need to exercise your judgment when you're reading A, B, C, D, that what should you do? It might be possible that in one situation you have an unqualified opinion. In the second situation, you might have a material uncertainty relating to going concern. In the third situation, you have a key audit matter. In the fourth situation, you have another information paragraph. Examiner will test you. Every situation in the reporting question will give rise to something different, and examiner is testing you. So you should exercise judgment in reading case, uh, exercise judgment in reading case, what should be the outcome? What should be the outcome? The outcome can be the opinion, or the outcome can be the paragraph. Not necessarily every situation given in the exam paper results in an opinion. There might be multiple situations which results into paragraphs. So that is a disastrous point with students, that when they exercise judgment and they have lack of knowledge, they exercise wrong judgment. So if you need to exercise judgment, and if you need to judge whether I should give an unqualified opinion or a qualified opinion, or whether should I give CAM, or whether should I give emphasis of a meta paragraph, for that you need to have sound knowledge. And the sound knowledge will come from the 3 articles. Is that clear to everyone? What I have discussed with you in the last 6 to 7 minutes? Is that making sense to all of you? Right? We cannot theoretically cover reporting, right? That is something you should do yourself. Either you are a self-study student, or you are taking classes from a college or from an approved learning provider, or you are just taking my webinars and preparing yourself for March 21 exams, whatever. You should have the right knowledge. So that is how you should be in reporting, right? So the most critical part which causes disaster in reporting is knowledge. If you don't have sound knowledge, you will spoil your answer. A lot of time, examiner criticize students that when you have to give a qualified opinion, you give adverse. When you have to give an unqualified opinion, you give qualified. When you have to give a CAM, you give a qualified opinion. When you have to give an emphasis of a meta paragraph, you give disclaimer of opinion. So you spoil things, right? Because you have a mixture of knowledge, or your knowledge is not refined, or your knowledge is not fine-tuned. So it's very important that you fine-tune your knowledge as soon as possible. And the wonderful source of fine-tuning the knowledge is my webinar today, and the previous webinars, and the examiner articles. I just want to show you an emphasis of the articles I've recommended you to read today. The first article which I recommended you, which you can now see on your screen, is the Audit Report. Now this is a fundamental article. You should read this article because this will give you every detail about Audit Report. This is a very well written article of the examining team. This article tells you about different things, right? This article tells you about key audit matters, number 1, right? This article tells you about, okay, this article tells you about the key audit matter. This article tells you about going concern, material uncertainty relating to going concern, right? This article tells you about the application of the qualified opinion and the adverse opinion, the application of qualified and adverse opinion. This article tells you about disclaimer of opinion. This article also tells you about emphasis of a meta paragraph and other meta paragraph, right? This article tells you about the different types of situations which comes in the AAA paper, which a student of the AAA paper should know. The different types of situations which comes in the AAA paper on audit reporting, which a student should know. And that list goes on to a conclusion. So is it a productive article telling you about CAM, telling you about MURGC, telling you about adverse opinion, qualified opinion, disclaimer of opinion, telling you about emphasis of a meta paragraph, telling you about other meta paragraph? So will you be reading it if you have not read it? And read it properly, right? Read it line by line. So this is a productive article. Now, then after this, examiner wrote another article. This article has a title, Audit Reporting, if you can see that in front of your screen. This is the article, the next one, Audit Reporting. And this Audit Reporting article is a update on key audit matters. So this article covers in depth the key audit matters and some other aspects of the report, right? So yes, these are updated articles, right? These are updated articles as per the new report which came from September 16 exams. These are updated articles, right? They were published after September 16 exams when the new report came in. So this article tells you about CAM. This article tells you about the key audit matters. This article tells you how to determine CAM in exam paper. This article tells you about the situations which give rise to CAM. Numerous examples have been given by examiner, and those examples will come in exam paper. If you read examiner examples, you need to trust that the examiner will convert any of those examples in a case study. A lot of time in the past paper, we have seen the same example used by examiner in the article has come in the case study, and you regret after. So please ensure that you read all the examples of CAM given by examiner, and any one of them can come to the exam paper. Okay, the next thing this article covers is the extended audit report, and it tells you what extra has come into the audit report beside CAM and what extra has been added into the audit report, and that's the conclusion. Productive articles. If you believe there is a need for book reading, you have to do a self-evaluation. Now, some students are weak, some are strong, some might have a very good F8 knowledge and some might not have it. So if you read the articles and you are still struggling attempting a past paper, then you have to go into the book. But book will vary from one student to another student. Some might read it, some might not, right? So I cannot recommend that to every one of you, right? So please do read articles on audit report, right? Yes, that's for the international syllabus, right? Okay, moving back to my Word file. So a lot of knowledge, right? So you need to fine tune your knowledge. Now moving backwards, the knowledge, when I do the past paper, if there is any relevance of a knowledge which I can share with you, I'll share with you. And if I need to correct any knowledge, I will correct that knowledge over the span of my class today, right? These articles have been shared in the handout sections of the webinar. Please download these articles from the handout sections. They've already been provided to you. Okay, so knowledge. Now, after the knowledge comes the exam paper. Now, when you are attempting an exam paper in AAA, what exactly examiner is asking you? Now, when you practice the 6 papers, you will see variety of questions on reporting, right? Now, past papers on reporting. Just give me 1 minute to change the color. Okay, when you do the past papers on reporting, the recent six, you will come across several requirements on reporting. In one question, you will find a different, in another, you will find a different, but all those requirements have been covered either in my webinar today or in my previous webinars. If you watch my previous 3 webinars, they will give you everything. So you should not be confused how we will go about preparing for a requirement, because every of those requirements have been carefully covered in my previous webinars. So past papers on reporting, the recent 6, if you practice them, you will be perfectly prepared to handle everything. And one of that requirement will come in the March 21 exams because there is a repetition. So if you practice the 6 papers, any one of those requirement will be in the March 21 paper. So better prepare all 6. Okay, let's start the journey. Now today I have 2 papers to discuss with you and lots of things around those papers. One is the recent one, September, December 20, and the other is the September 18. These are the two papers I have carefully selected. The question number 2A of the September 18 exams and the question number 3 of the September December 20 exams. So in section B, one of the question has to be on reporting. Now, let's start and let's understand, because lots of things about reporting will come from the practice. Let's start the journey. Now, the first question in order is the September 18 question. It's the September 18 question number 2, which I should start first. I'll do halfway through and I'll recommend you do the later. Now, when you look at the September 18 question number 2, if I put that in front of your screen now, okay, I hope you can all see the question number 2A of the September 18 exams in front of your screen. Right? Good. Okay. Now, this is a very typical question, right? So many times in the past paper, we have seen a question like this. If you have practiced broader papers, you will hold my statement as true that you must have seen a question like this where the examiner gives you a schedule of the uncorrected misstatements, and this question on a schedule of uncorrected misstatement have come so many times in the past paper. This is one of a very frequently asked question on reporting, and I choose that to solve it. Now, when you look at the question 2A and you scroll down to look at the requirements, when you look at the requirements, the requirement is right here. The requirement says, recommend and explain the matters which should be discussed with management in relation to each of the proposed adjustments. So you need to recommend and explain the matters which should be discussed with management in relation to each of the proposed adjustment, comma, including an assessment of their individual impact on the financial statement and on the auditor opinion if management does not make adjustments, full stop. Note, the split of the marks is shown against each issue above, So the split of the marks is shown against each issue above. Now, if you look at each issue above, this last issue, which is the issue number, there are 3 issues, right? Issue number 1, lease of testing equipment, has 7 marks. Then the second issue is a legal claim. A legal claim has 5 marks. And then you have asset impairment. Asset impairment has 5 marks. So that is how the marks have been given for each issue. Now, you have a requirement, and this requirement is to be applied on 3 issues. One is a legal case, one is an impairment, and one is a lease. So there are 3 things going into context, right? So where we have to work on. Now, just before I start with things, it's very, very important that you understand the requirement. The reporting requirements have a lot of comma and have a lot of and that is where you have a problem. If you read a reporting requirement in one go, you will overlook a comma and you will overlook an and you will spoil your answer. But if you stop at a comma, if you stop at an and, you will know how many things you need to do for 5 marks, 7 marks, or 6 marks. So reading the reporting question is very critical. It's not like an audit risk question. Even though we have seen complexities in audit risk question, at times in the audit risk question, the examiner says you should not do this. Or at times the examiner in an audit risk question says you should utilize the analytical procedure. So even reading of requirements is very, very important in a risk question. It's more important in a reporting question. Let's do the analysis of the requirement before we start reading the case study. Okay, I just copied this to my Word file so I can do a very proper analysis with you. Okay, let's first start with September 18 question number 2A, and the requirement is now in front of your screen. I hope all of you can see that, right? Now be very watchful. If you look at this requirement, let me increase the font size so you can clearly see it. Okay. Examiner is asking us, recommend and explain the matters which should be discussed with management in relation to each of the proposed adjustment. Can you see a comma here? proposed adjustment. So is that the first thing the examiner is asking for? Matters. Explain the matters which should be discussed with management in relation to each of the proposed adjustment. Number one, right? So that's the number one thing examiner is asking us. Explain the matters, right? That's number one thing the examiner is asking us. Very good. I'll be telling you how to do it. Number two, comma, including an assessment of their individual impact on the financial statement. Is the examiner want us to make an assessment of their individual impact on financial statements? Number two, so an assessment of the individual impact on the financial statement, not on the audit report, right? Not on the audit report, on the financial statement. So we need to do the individual, we need to do the assessment of the impact on the financial statements. And then can you see a break coming in the question again? And can you see the word and again? And on the auditor opinion, if the management does not make the proposed adjustment, if the management does not make the proposed adjustment, and on the audit opinion. So an assessment of their individual impact on the financial statement and on the audit report. So do we need to do an assessment of their individual impact on two things, on the financial statements and on the audit report? Do you agree with this? A and B? And on the audit report, are these two different things or are they the same thing? So are we doing the assessment of the impact just on the audit report, or are we also doing the assessment of the impact on the financial statements? A lot of time the student believe that in an audit report question there is no need of a financial statement, and they just think about audit report. You will do an incomplete answer if you do one of them. So how many issues we have in this question? 3, right? And for every issue, how many things we need to do? How many things we need to do for every issue? Right? Sorry, on the audit opinion, right? Sorry, not on the audit report, audit opinion. So an assessment of the impact on the financial statement and an assessment of the impact on the opinion of the auditor, right? That's what the examiner is asking for. Now, how many issues we have? We have issue 1, we have issue 2, and we have issue 3. I'll solve one of them with you, right? Issue 1, issue 2, issue 3, right? If I remember rightly, the issue 1 relates with lease. The issue 2 relates with legal issue. I think there was a legal case. And the issue 3 relates with impairment, right? So there are 3 issues. And every issue have marks. I think the issue number 1 has how many marks? Let's check that out. The issue number 1, lease has 7 marks, legal claim has 5, and asset impairment has 5. So it's 7, 5, and 5. So we have 7 marks for lease, we have 5 marks for legal case, we have 5 marks for impairment. Now for every issue, how many things I need to do? First, I need to explain the matters. Do you agree with me? Then I need to explain the individual impact, not the aggregate impact, individual impact on the financial statements and the individual impact on the opinion. Is the examiner asking for an aggregate impact? Is the examiner asking for an aggregate impact? No, an individual impact. So we need to explain the matters and we need to do the individual impact. So this is how you go about each of them. Have you understood how to break things? How to break things? We read the question, we break the question into 3 things. And those 3 things needs to be applied on 3 issues. So for every issue, we need to explain the matter. For every issue, we need to explain the individual impact on the financial statement. And for every issue, we need to explain the individual impact on opinion. I will demonstrate lease for 7 marks. You will apply the same phenomena to a legal case, and you will apply the same phenomena to impairment. So legal case and impairment will be your assignments. Is that clear? Let's start understanding what does explain the matter means, what does individual impact on the financial statement means, and what does individual impact on the opinion means. right? Let's start the journey. Now, before I show you how to read the question, something important, right, to understand. Let me draw a line here and we can start the exercise. Okay, the first thing the examiner asks is explain the matters. If I can just copy that out. You will not do the aggregate impact unless asked for. You will just keep it to the individual impact, right? Examiner is very clear, individual. So if you are doing aggregation, you are wasting your time. Okay, look at the first requirement of the examiner and understand this once forever. Whenever the examiner asks you the first requirement, which is very common in the reporting question, explain the matters which should be discussed with the management in relation to each of the proposed adjustment. Who is proposing the adjustment? Who is proposing the adjustment? The auditor is proposing the adjustment to the management. So explain the matters which you should be discussing as a manager. You are a manager, right? So explain the matters which you should be discussing with the management in relation to each of the proposed adjustments. Now, the matters you discuss with management in relation to each of the proposed adjustment, the very first matter which you will discuss will be what? The very first matter you will discuss with management is the materiality. You will tell the management that it is material. The second matter you will discuss with management in relation to the proposed adjustment is the accounting treatment. You will tell management what is the right accounting treatment so that they accept your adjustment. If you fail to convince management on the right accounting treatment, will they incorporate the adjustment in the financial statement? Do you believe you need to tell management the right accounting treatment to convince that you have done wrong so that they are convinced to make an adjustment? Right. Arun, recommend means you identify, right? And then you explain, as like identify and explain, right? So you need to recommend and explain the matters. So recommend means you highlight them and then you explain them, like just like identify and explain, right? Okay. So you need to explain the matters, right? Discuss the materiality, discuss the accounting treatment. Is everyone clear on my perspective of accounting treatment? In between, I got distracted with a question raised by Arun. So is everyone clear that we need to discuss with management the right accounting treatment to convince them to record the adjustment? Otherwise, they will not. So discuss with management the materiality, discuss with management the accounting treatment. Explain the matters which should be discussed with management in relation to the proposed adjustment. Now, after you discuss these matters, what will you do next? You will tell management what is the individual impact on financial statement of the proposed adjustment. If the management refuse to incorporate the proposed adjustment, what is the impact on the financial statement? You know the impact on the financial statement from day one. If the management fails to incorporate the proposed adjustment, the debit or the credit, the management says, we are not recording the debit and credit. What is the individual impact on the financial statement? Either something will be understated or something will be overstated in the financial statement. Is that right? If the management is not adjusting what you're asking, will that understate or overstate the financial statement? Is that the impact on the financial statement of a proposed adjustment if the management refused to incorporate the proposed adjustment? Is that right? So if the management is not recognizing the proposed adjustment which you are proposing, will that understate something and overstate something? Is that the individual impact on the financial statement? Have you covered this in the risk class day one? Impact on financial statement? Is that a new jargon for you? I hope you remember the structured approach of writing a ROM answer and an audit risk answer. Impact on financial statement. Or if the proposed adjustment relates to a disclosure, what if the proposed adjustment is about a disclosure? Then nothing will be under and overstated, right? Then what is the impact on the financial statements? The financial statements are materially misstated. As simple as that. So do you remember these two impacts from the day one of the webinar? So if the management refuse to adjust, and that is an accounting entry, that is a debit and credit, then something will be understated and something will be overstated. But if the management refuse to adjust a disclosure, then what will happen? What is the impact on the financial statement? Then the financial statements are materially misstated. So are you clear with the first requirement? Explain the matters which should be discussed with management in relation to each of the proposed adjustments. Discuss the materiality, discuss the accounting treatment. Then are you clear with the second requirement, individual impact on the financial statement? And then what is the last impact? The individual impact on audit opinion. Is the examiner saying individual impact on the report, or is the examiner saying individual impact on opinion? Is that narrow? Is that broad? See, you need to understand something very, very clearly. A lot of time you see the past paper, the examiner says the individual impact on the audit report. At times the examiner says individual impact on the audit opinion. What's the difference? Versus, let's do that versus. I hope you're getting my point. Versus, you do a past paper at home after the webinar gets over today, and you come across a terminology, individual impact on the audit report. So many times the examiner used this jargon. Individual impact on the audit, just 1 minute, individual impact on the audit report. Are you finding the difference when you read requirements? Examiner in this question is saying individual impact on the opinion, not on the report, not on the report. I hope you believe opinion is narrow, report is broader. Opinion is part of report, true? Opinion is one section of the report, true? Everyone? Do you believe opinion is one section of the audit report? Opinion is narrow and report is broad. Now, when the examiner is asking you impact on the opinion, impact on opinion, impact on opinion, and the student mistakenly write in the answer, this will result in emphasis of a meta paragraph, and you come happily out of the exam hall. Have you done the right conclusion? Examiner was asking for impact on opinion. Have you given the impact on opinion rather than you said to the examiner a paragraph will come? Is the examiner asking for a paragraph? No, examiner is asking for impact on opinion. How many types of opinions are there? How many types of opinions are there? 4. So will your answer be among 4? Will your answer be among 4? Right? Unqualified, qualified, adverse, disclaimer. But if a student writes this will result in an emphasis of a meta paragraph, are you giving the right answer? Or you say this will result in a key audit meta, are you giving the right answer? No, because the examiner is asking for impact on opinion. So technically the answer has to be within the 4 types of opinion. Agree? Within the 4 types of opinion. Right? So either the situation will give rise to an unqualified opinion, or either the situation give rise to a qualified opinion, or either the situation give rise to a adverse opinion or disclaimer. So is that clear? So impact on opinion. But if the examiner asks for impact on the audit report, then this is much broader. Now there might be a situation given by the examiner, issue number 1, issue number 2, issue number 3. Do you believe there might be a case where issue number 1 results in EOMP? Because examiner is saying impact on report, and the report covers the paragraph as well as the opinions. The issue number 2, for example, results in a qualified opinion, and the issue number 3 results in key audit meta. Is that possible? Or issue number 3 results in other meta paragraph. Is that possible? Because the examiner is saying impact on report. What does report covers? Do you believe report covers opinions as well as paragraphs? Opinions as well as paragraphs? So are you finding the track individual impact on opinion and individual impact on report? Will you read the question carefully at home? What is the examiner asking? So if the examiner is asking individual impact on report, do you believe in that question there might be a situation other than opinion? There might be a situation other than opinion when the examiner says individual impact on report. But when the examiner is saying individual impact on opinion, Are you just focused on opinion only or anything else? If you focus on anything else, are you on the right track or the wrong track? If you focus on anything else, are you on the right track or the wrong track? If the examiner is asking for individual impact on the opinion, on the wrong track, definitely. So are you getting this versus clear, everyone? Is everyone clear with this versus? Okay, great. So please be very careful about impact on opinion and impact on impact on the audit report as two different requirements in the exam paper, and you should be technically clear on this. Okay, so have you understood individual impact on financial statement means what, and individual impact on audit opinion means what? And can you see this word individual again and again? So if you spend time on aggregation, are you wasting your time in exam paper? That means you're not reading the mind of the examiner well. So back at home after the webinar today, in the next 24 hours, when you read a question on reporting, will you read it carefully? Just like I did. Will you break the question? Will you see exactly what this the examiner asking? Right? So explain the matters which should be discussed with management. What matters you discuss with management? Then individual impact on the financial statement, then individual impact on opinion. Right? Okay, now moving onwards. Let's attempt one of them so that you have an answer. Let's do the lease, the issue number 1, and let's solve that in a proper manner so that you know the answer. This I'll just show you how to answer it. Right? Issue number 1, lease. Let's see, have you understood my perspective? How many things we need to do under the issue number 1 for 7 marks? 3 things. And remember the marking scheme. The marking scheme, sorry, I should write the marking scheme above, right? In a reporting question, the marking scheme is so simple, just like ethical and professional issues yesterday. The marking scheme for reporting question is 1 mark for everything you do. Everything you do. So every point you raise in a reporting question is worth 1 marks. So 7 marks means how many points you need to raise in your answer, irrespective of whether it is an opinion, whether it is an impact on the financial statement, or whether it is a matters to be discussed. A total of 7, right? 1 mark for everything you do. Is that clear to everyone? Okay, good. Let's start reading the lease issue, the first one. Okay, I'm putting the lease issue in front of your screen now, which is from the paper. We'll just spend time on this. Okay, I'm reading the case. Please keep your focus strong, and I'll keep interacting with you. I'm reading from You Are a Manager, right from here. I'm reading. Listen to it like a story. You are a manager in Quorum and Company, a firm of chartered certified accountant. The audit of one of your client, Clark, for the year ended 31st of May is nearly complete, and the audit report is to be issued next week. So we are standing at a completion stage of the audit. The report is to be issued next week. Clark is an unlisted company, a family-owned business which specialize in service and repair of both commercial and privately owned motor vehicles. The company operates from 7 geographically distinct sites, each of which is considered as a separate cash generating unit. The draft financial statement recognizes a profit before tax of 2.3 million and a total assets of 22 million. So will this help us to determine the materiality? The draft statement recognized the profit before tax of 2.3 and a total assets of 22 million. The schedule of an uncorrected misstatements included in the Clark audit working paper and prepared by the audit supervisor is shown below. You are due to attend a meeting with the finance director tomorrow, at which the uncorrected misstatements will be discussed. What will you be discussing in relation to the uncorrected misstatements in the meeting tomorrow? Was the examiner asking you that? Explain the matters you should discuss with management in relation to each of the proposed adjustment? Was that part of the question? So you are to attend a meeting with the director tomorrow at which you will discuss with him the uncorrected misstatements. So will you be discussing with him the materiality, and will you be discussing with him the accounting treatment, whether they have done right or wrong? So has the supervisor prepare a schedule of uncorrected misstatements? And do you want the management to incorporate these misstatements in the financial statement? Right? So let's see what is the first uncorrected misstatement which has been highlighted by the auditor. The first misstatement is lease of a testing equipment. And the auditor is proposing that there should be a debit of 475. Lease asset should get debited, and there should be a lease liability which should get credited by 475. So this is the adjustment the auditor is proposing. So the auditor wants that the statement of financial position gets debited with 475, and the statement of financial position gets credited with 475. So do you believe currently this is something which is missing from the financial statements of the company? Do you agree with me? Currently, this is missing from the financial statements of the company. That is the reason the auditor is proposing that you should debit the assets and credit the liability. So do you believe currently the assets are understated and the liabilities are understated if the management doesn't incorporate this? So what is the individual impact on the financial statement? Do you believe the financial statements are understated? The assets are understated by $475,000 and the liabilities are understated with $475,000 because they've not recognized something. So from the adjustment, can you pick what is the under and overstatement currently in the financial statement if the management refused to incorporate it? Are you clear on that? So is the auditor proposing a debit and a credit? So currently the financial statement is with the debit and credit or is without the debit and credit? What is the answer? Currently the financial statement, is it with or without? It is without, because tomorrow you will have a meeting, right? And in the meeting you will discuss it. So if the management doesn't adjust it, do you believe the assets and liabilities are understated with 475? Right? So materiality is $475,000 material, is the adjustment material. So you will need to find the materiality. Now understand, this is a materiality which you need to find for a reporting question. Now when you are finding a materiality for a reporting question, you need to find the materiality on both the P&L and the balance sheet. If it is material on any one of them, it will be considered as giving rise to a qualified opinion. So in a reporting question, even though it's a balance sheet item, right? Even though it's a balance sheet item, see, this is a balance sheet item, right? So you should have divided the 475 with 22 million of the total assets. But because it's a reporting question, you have to take the impact. If it is material, it will result in a qualified opinion. So in a reporting question, remember the rule of thumb, you will find it on both, right? Is that clear to everyone? So now tell me, $475,000. Okay, one student, Kiran Kumar, has already identified it. It's 2.16% of the what? 2.16% of what? 2.16% of what? Okay, of the total assets. And then 20.6% of the profit. So is it material? 2.16% and 20%, is that material? Okay, so if the management doesn't adjust it, will it give rise to a qualified opinion? Right? So let's go in the order. Let's go in the order. The first one. Okay, just read the situation here before we jump into the answer and draft the answer. Look at the lease equipment. Why is the auditor proposing an adjustment of $475,000? What is the reason? The reason is this. I hope you can see the reason in front of your screen now, everyone. The reason is, I'm reading. Please keep your focus strong on the track. In the jurisdiction in which Clark operates, all motor vehicles over 3 year old are required to undergo an annual test of vehicle safety. The annual test requires specialist testing equipment, which is inspected by the government. Following inspection in May 2008, the government inspection report required Clark to replace the testing equipment at all 3 sites. So the government wants you to replace the testing equipment at all 3 sites. In order to comply with the requirement, Clark has agreed to lease new equipments from a leasing company. So they agreed to lease them rather than buy them from a leasing company on a 6-month lease. So is that a short-term lease, 6 months, under 12 months, a very short-term lease? Right now, I believe the IFRS 16 tells you that you can even, if it is a short-term lease, you can directly expense it out rather than recognizing it as an asset. Or you can recognize it as an asset as well. So you have a option by IFRS 16 that if it is a short-term lease, you can expense it out. Now see what the management has done. Under the terms of lease, the company has no option to purchase the equipment, right? So the company has no option to purchase the equipment. The testing equipment was made available for use by Clark at each of the sites. The client has capitalized leases with a total carrying amount of $625,000 at 2 sites. So they have capitalized leases of $625,000 at 2 sites, but has elected to take advantage of IFRS 16 not to capitalize short-term leases at the largest of the 3 sites. Now, is that disparity? All the 3 leases are short-term, under 6 months or 6 months. So if you follow one accounting treatment, should you stick to that for all, rather than you say for 2 leases, 2 short-term leases, I'll capitalize them. For 1 short-term lease, I'll expense them out. So IFRS 16 gives you a permission to expense them, but IFRS 16 also tells you that you need to follow a consistent treatment. If the management is capitalizing, then you should capitalize all of them. Or if the management is expensing, then you should expense all of them. So that is the reason the auditor is telling the management that the present value of the lease payment, which you are not capitalizing, is $475,000, and this should be recognized in the statement of financial position. So is the auditor recommending management to debit $475,000 as a lease asset and credit the lease liability rather than expense it out? So should there be a consistent accounting treatment? Should there be a consistent accounting treatment, everyone? So if they have capitalized 2 of the short-term leases, should they capitalize the 3rd short-term lease as well? Is that right? Is that right, everyone? So has the management done an inconsistent treatment and the auditor wants the treatment to be consistent? Right? So let's find the answer now. The very first way, when you write the answer for the issue number 1, you start with matters. And under the matters, you'll write your answer. The first one, the lease asset and the liability, the lease asset and the liability to be recognized, the lease asset and the liability to be recognized in the financial statements as proposed by the auditor is $475,000, which is 2.16% of the total assets and 20% of the profit before tax. I hope I'm writing the right percentages. The lease asset and the liability to be recognized in the financial statement as proposed by the auditor is $475,000, which is 2.16% of the total assets and 20% of the profit before tax, thus material to the financial statement. So have you covered the first matter? Have you covered the first matter? Right? Discuss with management. Number 1, change the paragraph. When your first point gets over, change the paragraph and come to the second paragraph. Then write the accounting treatment. The right accounting treatment, which you need to discuss with management, the right accounting treatment is that if short-term leases are capitalized by management, then all of them should be capitalized. To ensure consistency of the accounting practices. Rather, some of them are capitalized and other are expensed out. So the right accounting treatment is that if there is a short-term lease, the right accounting treatment is that if short-term leases are capitalized by management, then all of them should be capitalized to ensure consistency of the accounting treatment. Uh, Rather, some of them are capitalized and some of them are expensed out, which is an inconsistent accounting treatment. Even though IFRS 16 permits you that you can expense them out, but then you should follow the same treatment. If you expense one of them out, then you should expense all of them out. But if you capitalize some of them, then you should capitalize all of them. Are you getting the fact, everyone, clear? So the right accounting treatment. Am I quoting the IFRS 16? Am I dragging my accounting treatment? Am I exaggerating my accounting treatment? I hope you remember from the day one. Brief accounting treatment. So this is the right accounting treatment which I should be discussing with management. So that's number 2 meta. Then after discussing these matters with the management, I will also be getting to my next point, which is the impact on financial statements. I'll tell management that if this proposed adjustment of debiting the lease assets and crediting the lease liability is not made, then the assets will be understated and liability will be understated too. So what is the individual impact on the financial statement, right? And then you come to the last thing, the impact on opinion. Now for impact on opinion, you need to build perspective. You will first tell examiner, you will not just say this will result in a qualified opinion, full stop. No, you cannot be blunt. Now you need to develop impact on opinion. Now for impact on opinion, you will first tell examiner, if the management refused to amend the financial statement for the lease assets and liability, the auditor will consider the materiality of the issue, which has already been concluded as material to financial statement. So you are just reaffirming. You're not copying the same percentage from up and down. You're just concluding your point. I hope you're getting the sense of how I concluded my point. I say if the management refused to amend the financial statement for lease assets and liabilities, the auditor will consider the materiality of the issue, which has already been concluded. Did I copy the same statement, or I just affirmed, right? Which has already been concluded as material to the financial statement. So don't do this again, right? But when you conclude it, the examiner will give you 1 mark for this conclusion, right? Which has already been concluded to the material, to the financial statement. Now, if the management refuse, it is already material, then you say the auditor will issue a qualified opinion because it is a material misstatement, or due to opinion due to a material misstatement in the financial statements. Due to a material misstatements in the financial statements, the auditor will issue a qualified opinion due to a material misstatement in the financial statements. Full stop. The next line. The auditor will explain the reason for issuing a qualified opinion on the financial statement in the basis of a qualified opinion paragraph. In the basis of the qualified opinion paragraph, which will be after the qualified opinion, which will be after the qualified opinion para in the audit report. Full stop. So impact. In the first line, I give my conclusion that the matter is material, number one. Then in the second point, I justified because it's a material matter, if the matter is material and the management refused, the auditor will issue a qualified opinion. And because it's a material misstatement, right? And the auditor will issue the reason for issuing a qualified opinion on the financial statement in the basis of a qualified opinion paragraph, which will be after the qualified opinion para in the audit report. Sharik, whenever the auditor issues a qualified opinion, the basis of opinion changes to a basis for a qualified opinion. Or whenever the auditor issue a adverse opinion, it changes to basis for a adverse opinion. Right? So you need to change it. You need to change it, right? So when you issue an unqualified opinion, you say basis of opinion. But when you issue a qualified opinion, you say basis of a qualified opinion. Or when you issue an adverse opinion, you say basis of an adverse opinion, right? Is that clear? So you need to change the terminology for basis of opinion paragraph. So how many paragraphs can you see under impact on opinion? Right? How many paragraphs can you see under impact on opinion? 3. So how many marks will you get for that? 3, right? Okay. How many paragraphs can you see under impact of financial statement? 1. So how many marks will you get for that? 1. 3 and 1 is 4. Okay. How many paragraphs do you see under matters? Matters to be discussed with management? 2. So how many marks will we get for that? 2. So in total, how many marks have we taken out of 7? 6. Do we have a missing mark? Do we have a missing mark? Yes. Now under the matters, I can only write materiality as a matter. Under the matter, I can only write the accounting treatment as a matter. Under the impact on the financial statement, I can only write about the understatements and the overstatements, right? I cannot write anything else. But now when I have 1 mark remaining, what will I do? You first tell examiner that the matter is material, then you tell examiner it will give rise to a qualified opinion, then you tell examiner that the auditor has to explain it under the basis of a qualified opinion paragraph, and finally, because you have 1 mark remaining, if you don't have, don't do it. Do we have 1 mark remaining? So should we do something extra? But if your marks are exhausted, you will not do it. If your marks are exhausted, don't do it. Now see, I'm writing something extra because I have 1 mark remaining, and I'm writing that in red because I have 1 mark remaining. What is that? The qualified opinion and the basis of qualified opinion will result in a modified audit report. So do you believe a qualified opinion results into a modified audit report rather than an unmodified audit report? So the qualified opinion and the basis of the qualified opinion will result in a modified report. Why I wrote this sentence? Because I have 1 mark remaining to complete my 7 marks. Otherwise, if your marks were 6, you would have stopped right here, audit report, and you stop. Now tell me, are you getting a structure of attempting an answer which asks you, explain the matters which you should discuss with management? Have you got an answer of explaining the impact on financial statement? Have you got an answer for explaining the impact on opinion? So are you clear with the 3 headings, everyone? And have you seen the length of the answer? See, this is a 7 marks answer. How well it has been written. Every paragraph, I changed the paragraph. Every new point, please, every new point should start from a new para. So under the matters, I have 2 paras. Under the impact, I have 1 para. Under the impact on opinion, I have 4 paras. And that's a structured 7 marks answer with no dragging elements. Is that clear to all of you? On the basis, will you be able to do the matter number 2, which is about a legal case? And on that basis, will you be able to do the matter number 3, which is impairment? Right? So you can put headings like impact on financial statements, you can use them as headings. Impact on opinion, you can use them as headings. Impact on the matters, you can use them as headings so that you can do a discrete answer, right? Okay, I'll be guiding you more as well. Uh, we have another question coming from September-December 20 exams, which is important, and that will be another eye opener. And this is not just the end of things, right? In between, I'll be discussing many small things as well about requirements, about marking schemes, about how to go down taking your marks, and many smaller aspects of a question on audit report. But I'm again emphasizing in my last webinar, December 20, and in my second last webinar in March 20, I have done reporting topics. So if you explore my December 20 webinar, you will get another question on reporting. If you do my March 20 webinar, you will get another question on reporting. So, and March 20 webinar, 21 webinar, you're getting another 2 questions on reporting. So even if you do the 3 previous webinars on audit reporting, you will get every aspect of reporting. I have done the critical appraisal of the report. I have covered the impact on audit report as a requirement. I have covered the individual impact in the previous requirements. I've covered the aggregate impacts in the previous requirement. So every twist has been covered. Is that clear? Yes, Asad, examiner didn't ask for the impact on the report, but we had an extra mark remaining, right? So in an exam, in a circumstance where you have an extra mark remaining under impact on opinion, so you will convert how the opinion will impact the audit report, right? This is only to be done, Asad, when you have a mark remaining. I would not have done it if my marks were exhausted. I just did it because I have a mark remaining. So I could not have come out of the exam hall with 6 marks. So on a safe side, I wrote a statement that this will result into a modified report. So as a tutor, I just guided you that there is a difference between impact on opinion and impact on report. But if you're writing an impact on opinion in exam paper and you have marks remaining, then you will convert the impact on opinion with the impact on the report. Is that clear? Okay, that's great. So how has been the session part 1 today? We are taking a break now for 13 minutes, and at 10 o'clock we'll resume back with September-December 20 question. Until the end of the webinar, we'll explore the September-December 20 question. It's a long question. It's a full question number 3, and several aspects have to be covered from that. So please come back to the webinar at 10 a.m. and we'll resume back at 10 a.m. with the next phase of our discussion. Right? I hope you had productive learnings, and we'll start at 10 p.m. Sorry, we'll start at 10 p.m. or slightly at 10:02 or 10:03. So just let's make it a 15 minutes break. We'll start at 10:03 p.m. and we'll resume with September-December 20 question. Right? Okay. So off to a break, everyone, for 15 minutes. So let me put the break slide in front of you. Have a cup of tea, come back fresh into the class. The break is till 10:03. I'm again repeating that, 10:03 p.m. We'll resume back. I'm putting that in the chat box as well. Break till 10:03 p.m. I've sent that to all of you. I hope you got this in the chat box, right? So off to a break. I'm just muting myself for 15 minutes, and I'll be looking forward to your feedback on the first part of the day 3 today, and have it been an insightful session for all of you. We still have another question, September-December 20, question number 3. Keep that in front of you after the webinar resumes at 10:03. Okay, I'm muting myself, right? Okay, welcome back everyone. I hope all of you can hear me. Okay, that's great. If all of you can hear me, and can you see the screen has changed from the break to the agenda for day 3? So let's start with the proceeding now for the last part of the day 3, where we need to focus on another exam question, which is September-December 20, question number 3. So let's explore the question and let's understand what we need to learn from the requirement of the question this time. Now, if I put in front of your screen the very recent question which came in September-December 20, and I want to share the examiner criticism as well. So I'll keep 15 to 20 minutes for examiner criticism at the end of the webinar today. So we have an emphasis on the new examiner report even. Now, when you look at the question number 3 in front of your screen from the very latest paper, September-December 20, I hope you can all see that. Let's see what is the situation. Again, in a reporting question, there are more than one issues. It's very rare to see a reporting question with a single issue. There has been questions like such, but most of the time in a reporting question, there are more than one issue. Just like the previous question, there were 3 issues. So the question which came in the last exam sitting, September-December 20, there were 2 issues in a reporting question. One was the sale of division, and the other issue was the first time adoption of IFRS 16. So 2 issues, right? Let's see what are the requirements. When you look at the requirement for the first part, the requirement for the first part says comment on the completion matters to be considered in relation to the issues described. Comment on the completion matters. In the last question, it was explain the matters which you should discuss with management. Over here, the examiner is saying comment on the completion matters to be considered in relation to the issues described. Okay, then can you see the break and after the and, the examiner says recommend further actions. So we need to recommend the further actions before signing the report. And then can you see an and? After the and, the examiner says evaluate the implication for the audit report if no adjustments are made. This time the examiner is saying implication, not for the opinion, but implication for the audit report if no adjustments are made. Marks are 15. So 15 marks, and how many issues we have above? Examiner is not splitting. So it's up to you. You might take more marks on issue 1 and less marks on issue 2. Or you might take less marks on issue 1 and more marks on issue 2. But the total marks you have to reach is how many? 15. And for 15 marks, how many issues you have? 2. And for every issue, how many things you need to do? How many times you see the word and? So how many things you need to do for every issue? You need to comment on the matters, number 1. You need to recommend actions, number 2. And you need to think about the impact on the report, 3, right? So let's first structure the question very carefully. I hope this structuring of question makes sense to all of you. And this structuring of question is a really important exercise, right? Let's start the next question, right? September-December 20 on the next page. Can all of you see the Word file in front of you? Okay, we're starting from September-December 20, question number 3. Okay, good. Let's see if we can understand the requirement finally and break it and start it. Okay, we have an issue 1 again, and we have an issue 2. The issue 1 relates with a sale of a division, I think, right? A sale of a division, right? And the issue number 2 relates with the first time adoption of IFRS 16. First time adoption of the IFRS 16. Examiner is not splitting the marks just like the previous question. In the previous question, we had different marks for lease, we had different marks for legal claim, we had different marks for impairment. But over here, we have accumulative 15 marks, and we need to utilize the way we want to. We can have more marks for sale of division like 10 and 5 for first time adoption, or we can have 9 marks for sale of division and 6 marks for first time adoption. It's totally up to you. every point you write will give you 1 mark, right? So for both issues together, how many points you should have in the total answer? For both issues together, how many points you should have in the total answer? 15 points. That's wonderful. Okay, now first of all, we need to comment. We need to comment on the matters, completion matters to be considered, number 1. Number 2, we need to recommend actions. And number 3, we need to think about the implication for the audit report. So that's the 3 things we need to work upon. So how many things we have in total? If we break the requirements and start the reading of the question, I'll read one of them with you, like sale of division, and you do the first time adoption yourself. Okay, requirement. First, comment on completion matter. Do you agree that the question on reporting is set at a completion stage? So you should know what are completion matters. Comment on completion matter. This is the first time the examiner used a jargon completion matter, but it has exactly the same meaning which we covered just in the preceding question. Comment on the completion matters. Number 2, further actions. And number 3, implication. Implication for audit report if no adjustments are made in the financial statement. If no adjustments are made in the financial statements, right? So that's how you need to go with. Let's see how to go with it. Now, when you look at this word comment on the meta, which is for the first time, not for the first time, sorry, we just covered that in the preceding question, comment on the completion meta. Now, whether the examiner says explain the matter, whether the examiner says comment on the matter, whether the examiner says comment on the matter in relation to each of the misstatement, or whether the examiner says comment on the matters you should discuss with management, irrespective, the breakdown of comment on the matter remains the same because it's a reporting question, right? Agree? Because it's a completion question. Agree? Because it's a question on reporting, it's a question on completion. So what is the first comment? The first comment is materiality, right? The second comment is the accounting treatment. The third comment, because over here the examiner is not breaking the question like the last one, impact on the financial statement or something like that. So over here you can open the things. You can even comment on its impact on the financial statements if the management is refusing to amend a matter. So the materiality of the matter, the treatment of the matter, the impact of the matter on the financial statement, not the impact on the opinion because it's coming in the last part already, right? So you can stretch your matters on materiality, you can stretch your matter on treatment, you can stretch your matter on impact on financial statement, and then the further actions. Actions you will take to resolve actions you will take to resolve the matter. If the matter is not resolved, what will happen? There will be an impact on the audit report, right? So do you believe that firstly the auditor tries to resolve a matter before it discusses the qualified opinion or adverse opinion? So action you will take to resolve the matter. Now actions are important. I hope we covered the difference between an action and a procedure yesterday. Actions are taken to resolve a matter. So the matter given in the case study, you need to resolve it. But if the matter is not resolved and the management is reluctant to resolve it, the management is reluctant to rectify it, what will happen? Eventually, you will have an impact on the report. You will have impact on the report. Is that right? So impact on the report itself is the last resort. Impact on the report itself is the last action. Can you all hear me? Are you all clear with the breakdown of the requirement? So whenever the examiner asks you comment on the matter, so you have to explain the materiality, you have to explain the accounting treatment, you have to explain the impact on the financial statement. And in the further actions, you will take actions to resolve the matter, and then you will go with impact on report. Everything is worth 1 mark. There might be more than one accounting treatment in the case study. So every accounting treatment you will write will give you 1 mark. Materiality is 1 mark. There might be multiple problems in the case study and every problem has a materiality. So if there is unique problems, every unique problem will give you 1 mark for materiality. action, every action will give you 1 mark. Impact on report, every impact on report will give you 1 mark. So in accumulation, how many marks you need to write? 15. Now it's up to you that you have more marks in sale of division. I think sale of division is a broader case, will take more marks. First time adoption of IFRS 16 is more easier and will take less marks. So probably you can have more marks in first and less in second, right? I hope my voice is clear to all of you. If anyone is having any issues with voice, you need to disconnect and come back to the session again. Is my voice clear through to all of you? Okay, that's great. Okay, good. So let's start it. So if you're clear with the requirements, I hope you also got a lesson today that reading the requirements is very important. How many times you spend careful time on reading requirements? Perhaps students do that very less. They're in a hurry for some reason or the other. They're just in rush reading the requirements. They should read requirements well, right? They should break requirements well to understand exactly what is to be done. Then when you plan the answer, do you believe the answer will become quality? When you write the answer will become quality. But if you don't read the requirements well, are you writing a good quality answer? Are you writing an effective answer? So let's start with the issue number 1, sale of division. Let's see what is the comment on the matters in a sale of division. What is the further actions you will take in a sale of a division, and what is the implication in the case of sale of division? I also need to tell you what are actions in a reporting question. I need to suggest you some very effective rote learn actions which you can use in an exam paper. So that will be really helpful to you, right? So you will get an amazing coverage of actions today in the webinar. Let's start the journey. Issue number 1. Let's find the problems. I'm putting the case in front of you. Let's put a quick time on the case. Issue number 1, sale of division, right? I'm reading the case. I hope you can see the case in front of your screen, right? And if any student has a question which is not answered, please have a courtesy to drop it on the WhatsApp group, because in the live session, the tutor is busy in the deliverance of the lecture. Either I can answer your questions or I can deliver the lecture. Which one you want? I hope all of you want me to deliver the lecture, right? If you have a question, you should put it on the WhatsApp group so that the tutor can respond to that in the next 24 hours. Is that clear to all of you? Okay, let's read the case. Okay, I'm reading the case. Please keep your focus on screen. It is 1st of July. You are a manager responsible for the audit of the Myron Company, a listed company, and you are in the process of completing the audit of the financial statement. The audit report is to be signed next week. So it's a listed company, first of all. The audit report is to be signed next week, and we are in the stage of completion. So you need to discuss the methods relating to completion. The company's principal activity is publication of trade and scientific journals. The draft financial statement recognizes a revenue of 108 million. They have a profit of 9.3 million, and they have the total assets at 150 million, right? So this will help us in determining the materiality. You are in the process of reviewing the working papers and have identified the following issues. Let's see what is the first issue. What is the matters relating to first issue? What are further actions relating to first issue? And how can the first issue result in an impact on the audit report? Let's start the journey. The first issue, sale of division. Myron Company is at the advanced stage of negotiations to sell its scientific publishing division. So they want to sell their scientific publishing division to a competitor, and they are at an advanced stage. Clue. Are we getting a clue of IFRS 5 here? Are we getting a clue of IFRS 5 from a heading sale of division? Is that a asset held for sale and a discontinued operation? Is that an asset held for sale and a discontinued operation? right? So are we getting a clue? Okay, we are. So Myron Company is at an advanced stage, right, of negotiations to sell its scientific publishing division, that is a discontinued operation, to a competitor. And any assets relating to this division should be held as sale. This division contributed revenue of 13 million. So this division contributes revenue of 13 million, and this division contributes a profit before tax of 1.4 million during the year. Is this division important, material? Can you find the materiality? How much are they contributing? They're contributing 13 million in the revenue. So 13 million in the total revenue of 108. And this division is contributing approximately 1.4 million in the profit. So the total profits we have is like 9.3 million, and this division is contributing 1.4 million in profit. Just let first comment on, is it a material division which they are selling, right? I'll be taking your answers and I'll be writing the answer. Number one, how would you go about it? You will say the sale of division is the sale of division is how much are they contributing in revenue? How much are they part of revenue? 12% of the revenue, right? And 15% of the profit, is that right? Okay, that's wonderful. They are 12% of the revenue and 15% of the profit. The sale of division is 12% of the revenue and 15% of the profit for Myron Company. I think that's the name of the company I'm using rightly. Myron Company, sorry, Myron Company. So the sale of division is 12% of the revenue and 15% of the profit for the Myron Company. Thus, the division is material to the company, and they're selling this division, right? So is it a significant division for the company which they're selling? Is it an important division which they are selling, right? Fine. Okay, so will we get 1 mark here straight away on commenting on the materiality of the division? Go back to the case study now. Okay, moving further. The next line. The draft sale agreement, which is due to be finalized by the 1st of August. Due to be finalized by 1st of August. What is the year end of the company? 31st of March. So the year end of the company is 31st of March. And they will finalize the agreement to sell within the next 12 months. So the agreement to sell will be finalized by when? The agreement to sell will be finalized by the 1st of August. Is that within 12 months after the balance sheet date? So do you believe it is highly probable that they will sell it? Is it meeting the condition of IFRS 5? Is it resulting into a high probability that it will be sold within the next 12 months? So it's due to be finalized in August 20X5, shows an agreed sale price after cost of disposal at 42 million. So what is the fair value less the cost to sell? The fair value less cost to sell is 42 million. Fair value less cost to sell. The division is a separate cash generating unit. So should we recognize it as a discontinued operation even? And the assets relating to the division should be recognized as asset held for sale? Agree? So should we recognize this division as a discontinued operation? Should we show the results of a discontinued operation on the face of the income statement and on the face of the cash flow statement? Do you understand the requirement of IFRS 5? When there is a discontinued operation, you need to show the results. You need to present the results of the discontinued operation on the face of the P&L and on the face of the cash flow statement. And the assets held for sale should be recognized as a current asset, right? So should we recognize the asset held for sale as a current asset at the lower of the carrying amount or the recoverable amount, right? Good. Move on. So the division is a separate cash generating unit. So that means we should recognize it as a discontinued operation. None of the assets of the division are held under a revaluation policy, and the depreciation is charged on a straight line basis. Now they don't have a revaluation policy, right? So if you have any uh, any loss on any loss on impairment relating to this division which you are selling, You cannot adjust it from the revaluation reserve, right? If you have any impairment loss, which you might recognize when you are selling this asset, because you need to recognize the asset at the lower of the carrying amount or the recoverable amount. So any loss on that will be directly taken to the profit and loss account, right? It will not be adjusted from a revaluation reserve. So examiner is telling you very clear they don't have a revaluation policy. So nothing will be adjusted from the revaluation reserve. Very straightforward line. You come to the next line. The finance director of Myron Company has not made any disclosure with respect to the upcoming sales in the financial statement. Is that a problem? Is that the impact? Has not made any disclosure? Should he recognize the sale of division as a current asset, like asset held for sale? Should they give a disclosure of a discontinued operation on the P&L and on the cash flow statement, right? So it has not made any disclosure. So do you understand this is a misstatement? Has not made any disclosure. This is a misstatement here. Impact on the audit report. As he considered it to be as he considered it to be part of the next year accounting transactions. Is it part of the next year accounting transaction? Or is it meeting the condition of IFRS 5 that the division will be sold in the next 12 months? So if the division is to be sold in the next 12 months, should we recognize it as a discontinued operation and asset held for sale at the year end? We should. However, the division has been written down, which is good, from its current carrying amount. What is the current carrying amount of the division? 45 million. And it has been written down to its estimated value in use. What is the estimated value in use? 41 million. So they have written down the division from 45 million, which is the carrying amount, to the value in use, which is 41 million. Value in use is 41 million. And what was the fair value? Fair value less cost to sell. That was 42 million. Now, do you believe that the recoverable amount is the higher? That the recoverable amount is the higher of the value in use or the fair value less the cost to sell? So should they have recognized the division at 42 million or at 41 million? They have recognized it at 41 million. So do you believe the recoverable amount is the higher of the value in use and the fair value less the cost to sell? So which is higher, 41 or 42? Which is higher? 42. So should they recognize the division at 42 million or 41 million in the financial statement? So they have recognized it at 41 million. So does that understate the asset? If they recognized it at 41 million, have they understated the assets? Right? They have understated the assets, right? And they have already done that blunder. They have understated the assets, right? By $1 million. So how many issues we have in the sale of division? The accounting treatment. Should we write the accounting treatment of discontinued operation because the sale of division is meeting the criteria of discontinued operation? Should we write the accounting treatment of asset held for sale because the assets relating to the division should be classified as asset held for sale at the higher of the value in use or the fair value less the cost to sell? Do we also find the materiality of $1 million which they have recognized wrongly? They should have recognized the division at 42 million. They have recognized it at 41 million. So what is the adjustment? Should there be an adjustment of $1 million which should be made? And what is the materiality of the adjustment? What is the materiality of the adjustment? Can you find that out? Can you find the materiality of the adjustment? $1 million? $1 million. How much is $1 million to the profits and how much is $1 million to the total assets? Your assets are understated, right? And your profit is also understated. Your profit is also understated because you charge more impairment to the profit. You charge more impairment to the profit. Have you recorded it at 41 million? So how much impairment have you recognized? You have recognized an impairment of 4 million. So has that resulted in lowering profit? How much impairment you should have recognized? 45 minus 42. Are you clear with me? how much impairment you should recognize? 45 minus 42, $3 million. But how much impairment have you recognized? How much impairment have you recognized? 45 minus 41. So have you recognized more impairment? So are your expenses overstated? Are your expenses overstated and your profit understated? So $1 million. Okay, $1 million is 1% of the profit and 6% of the assets. So 1% of the profit, I think that's immaterial, but not 1% of the profit. It's 10.8% of the profit. That's material, right? That's material. So you need to find the materiality of $1 million as a separate issue. Now let's find the conclusion, right? Is everyone clear with the reading of the case? Is everyone clear with exactly what is happening in the case? And have you identified multiple issues going through sale of division? Clear, everyone? Should we go down constructing the answer and brainstorm the answer, how you go down writing the answer? Right? Okay, let's start writing the answer. Okay, the first point, I hope you can see the Word file now, everyone. Okay, so we found the first one. The sale of division is 12% of the revenue and 15% of the profit. Thus, the division is material to the company. Now, in the second point, you write the accounting treatment. Now, in terms of the accounting treatment, the first accounting treatment you need to write is of the discontinued operation. As the division is a separate cash generating unit, as the division is a separate cash generating unit, the sale of division, which is highly probable, at the year end, because the management has already, because the management is already at the advanced stage, of negotiations. So it's highly probable it will be sold in the next 12 months. So as the division is a separate cash generating unit, the sale of a division, which is highly probable at the year end because as the division is a separate cash generating unit, the sale of division, which is highly probable at the year end because the management is already at the advanced stage of negotiations, should be classified as a discontinued operation. Full stop. 1 mark for the accounting treatment. Further, the results of the discontinued operations should be shown. The results of the discontinued operation should be presented separately in the statement of profit and loss, and the statement of cash flow statement. So is that the accounting treatment, that it should be classified as a discontinued operation and it should be presented separately on the profit and loss and on the cash flow statement? I'll get another 1 mark for comment on the matter. So the first comment on the matter was the materiality. Then the next comment was the accounting treatment to recognize it as a discontinued operation. Then the next comment was to present it separately. So presenting separately is 1 comment. Classifying it as a discontinued operation is 1 comment, right? And you move on. Then you say the assets relating to the division should be classified as held for sale, and shown as a current asset, current assets in the statement of financial position at the lower of, at financial position at the lower of the carrying amount, and recoverable amount. Is that another accounting treatment I'm writing? Number one, at the lower of the carrying amount and the recoverable amount. Full stop? No, the recoverable amount, then after that, the recoverable amount is the higher of value in use or the fair value less cost to sell. Cost to sell, right? So you should recognize it in the financial position at the lower of the carrying amount and the recoverable amount, where the recoverable amount is the higher of the value in use and the fair value less cost to sell. I'll get another 1 mark for this accounting treatment. Then I put a full stop and tell examiner the management has already recognized the asset held for sale at $42 million, which the management has already recognized the asset held for sale at 42 million, which is incorrect, as the higher of value in use or fair value is because the higher of has recognized them at 41 million, has recognized them at 41 million, which is incorrect, as the higher of value in use or the fair value less cost to sell is $42 million. So the asset held for sale should be recorded at $42 million instead. Is that clear? 1 mark for this. Then the next 1 mark. The difference between the management recorded value, difference between both is $1 million, which should be adjusted, as currently what is happening, as currently the assets and profits are understated because of management recognizing it at 41 million instead of 42 million. I hope you agree with that. The difference between both is $1 million, which should be adjusted, as currently the assets and profits are understated because management recorded the assets at $41 million. So you have recognized more impairment, right? You should have recognized less impairment. Full stop. $1 million should be adjusted. I'll get 1 mark for the adjustment. Then in the next line, I say the $1 million to be adjusted. Is that a separate figure for which a materiality should be found? Do you agree with that? Is that a separate figure for which materiality should be found, right? So the $1 million to be adjusted is how much of the profit? The 1 million. The $1 million to be adjusted is 10.7% of the profit. And how much to the assets? Anyone found it on the assets of the company? How much to the assets? 0.92% is on the assets. Is that what you're saying, Molly? 0.92%. Okay. It is 10.7% of the profit and 0.92% of the total assets. Thus, material to thus material to profit and loss. So is it material to the profit and loss? The higher percentage, right? So the $1 million is material to the profit and loss, not to the total assets. So thus material to the profit and loss, full stop. I'll get 1 mark for the comment on the materiality. Now see, have I done justice with the first requirement? Comment on the completion matter. Have I calculated materiality of the division? Number 1. Have I calculated the materiality of the adjustment? Right? Have I calculated the materiality of the adjustment? Right? Now, whatever the percentage is, right? Some students is saying 0.92, some is saying 0.06, whatever the percentage, please check that out. So in both cases, it's immaterial, right? But it's material to the profit. So have I commented on the materiality where possible? And did we found multiple materialities in the case study? Have I commented on the accounting treatment, not just of discontinued operation? Have I found the accounting treatment of the asset held for sale? How many accounting treatments were there? Many. And did I talk about the impact on the financial statement? That the management has not disclosed the asset held for sale. So did we talk about something being understated and something being overstated? So look at the statement. I hope you remember the statement. It was written that the finance director has not made any disclosure. So is that a misstatement? Is that a misstatement? So can we write another point? It's not just the $1 million value which should be adjusted. The more important thing is the management. Has the management done anything for asset held for sale? No. The question is very blunt on that. The management has not recognized the sale of division, has not recognized the sale of, the management has not presented the sale of division as a discontinued operation. I hope you agree with me from the case study. The management has not presented the sale of division as a discontinued operation, nor has they classified the asset held for sale as current assets, which uh, which results in financial statements being materially misstated. So management has done nothing. They are not applying the IFRS 5 in the right manner. They have not given the uh, presentation of the sale of division as a discontinued operation, nor have they recognized the asset held for sale as current asset. They've only written it down to 41 million. They've not classified it as a current asset, but they have also recognized a higher amount of impairment when they should have recognized the impairment for just $3 million. How many issues are there? How many marks have we accumulated? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just on one issue. We still left with further actions. We still left with impact on report. So do you believe if the management doesn't adjust, the management doesn't present the sale of division as a discontinued operation, or they classified it as a current asset, is it material? Have you already commented on the materiality? So will it result into a qualified opinion? So when you write the impact on the report, can you just link it with a qualified opinion? I'm not writing the answer in the session, but do you all understand the matter is material and the management is not doing the right accounting treatment? So will it result into a qualified opinion? So will you be able to write the impact on the report, everyone? Just like we wrote for the previous question? Clear? Because I want to spend time on further actions, right? I want to spend time on further actions, how you write them down. So is everyone clear between comment on the completion matters? Is everyone technically clear what does comment on completion matter mean? That you comment on the materialities where possible, you comment on the accounting treatments where possible, you comment on the impact on the financial statements, the adjustments to be incorporated, what the management has done wrong, and you keep commenting on that, and every comment you put in is giving you 1 mark. Is that clear? Have you understood the sale of division? Are you clear on sale of division? Are you clear with what blunders the management have done in the sale of division? You all know IFRS 5, right? So please continue with the impact on the report. The impact on the report will be qualified. You know exactly how to write a paragraph on a qualified opinion, as I wrote in the previous question prior to the break, right? Okay, now let's understand what is further actions, how you write further actions. What does actions means literally? Let's get to that. Now, whenever a question asks you further actions, what does that mean? Let me take a fresh page for that and let me illustrate you that. In a reporting question, understand something very, very carefully, right? Further actions in a reporting question. Now, first of all, you need to understand and you need to agree with me that when you look at a reporting question, do you believe in a reporting question there is an issue? And most of the time, that issue is a wrong accounting treatment of the management, a wrong accounting treatment. So if there is a wrong accounting treatment, which is an issue, currently we have an issue, which is a wrong accounting treatment of a sale of division, right? In the question we were doing prior to the break, there was a wrong accounting treatment of IFRS 16. So when you have an issue in a reporting question, which most of the time is a wrong accounting treatment, what and how you apply actions to? What does action means here? Let's get on track. First of all, you need to understand what is the action and what is the objective of the action. The objective of the action is to resolve a problem. Now, if the problem is not resolved, then what will happen? Ultimately, it will lead to a qualified opinion, or ultimately it will lead to an adverse opinion. So is it a professional behavior of the auditor that the auditor tries to resolve the problem first, or the auditor tries to address the issue first? If the management is happy to address it, wonderful. Will you give a qualified opinion if the matter is resolved? No. But if the management fails to resolve the problem, will you give a qualified opinion? Yes. So do you believe actions are important? And actions are taken before you address a qualified opinion? Actions are taken before you address an adverse opinion? So the objective of an action is to resolve a problem. Now the examiner is asking you write further actions. Let's see how to go about it. What literally are actions? Now just to save my time and to give you more coverage, I'll copy these actions, which I've written as illustration, and I'll explain you how to go about it, because I want to spend time on explaining them so that you get sense of that in exam paper. See, I've copied something on your screen in front, and I just want to explain them out to you in a very careful manner, that what exactly are actions. Now listen to me very carefully. Actions in a reporting question, right? Journally. Whenever you are taking an action, your first action always is, which you can rote learn, the auditor should request that management adjust the financial statement. Is that the first action? Will you go to the management and ask the management that you kindly adjust the financial statement and give the presentation of a discontinued operation? Classify the assets of the discontinued operation as held for sale. So will you request management to adjust the financial statements for the problem you have in the case study? Is that the first issue? Is that the first action? Sorry. The auditor should request that the management adjusts the financial statement, right? So what's the first action? Request. Underline. Next, if the management refused to adjust the financial statement, the auditor should communicate the misstatement to those charged with governance. So at the first go, with whom are you discussing it? You're discussing it with the management. But if the management fails to address it, are you taking it to the higher management? Are you discussing the same problem now with those charged with governance? I hope you all know the difference between management and those charged with governance. Management is like the middle management, right? And those charged with governance is the strategic management, which also includes the audit committee. Is it a listed company, Myron? Is Myron a listed company? So can we discuss the matter with those charged with governance? Can we discuss the matter with the audit committee if the management fails to resolve it? Do you agree? So what is the first action? Discuss the problem with the management and ask management to adjust. If the management refused to adjust or failed to adjust, then the second action is to discuss the matter with those charged with governance. Are you all clear with the first and second one? Are you all clear with first and second? Waiting for your answers. Okay, that's great. Moving to the third. They should repeat the request and inform them of the modification that should be made to the financial statements. They should repeat the request and inform them of the modification that would be made to the auditor report if adjustments are not made. So is the auditor trying to intimidate the management? Is the auditor saying that is the auditor informing them of the modification that should be made to the auditor report if the adjustments are not made? Are, are you telling management that if you fail to adjust, it will result into a modification on the audit report? It will result into a qualified opinion. It will result into an adverse opinion. So is informing them important here? But is informing them working like an intimidation threat? Are you intimidating the management? Are you telling management that if you fail to fulfill the request to adjust the financial statement, it will result into the modification of the report? Are you giving them a chance? Are you giving them the last chance to adjust the financial statement? And look at the last section. If the management still refuses, even after you tell them what will be the impact on the audit report, if the management still refuses to amend the financial statement, the auditor should request a written representation from the management. Auditor should request a written representation from the management confirming their intent to proceed without amending the financial statements. Are you getting the reason? Why are we taking a written representation from the management? Confirming their intent to proceed without amending the financial statement, and they are aware of the potential consequences. They are aware of the potential consequences. So you're taking a representation from the management. If they fails to amend the financial statement, that kindly give me a representation that you agree with what you are saying and you know what is the potential consequence. Is everyone clear with the bullet number 4? Why are we taking a written representation? What are we confirming from a written representation? We are confirming their intent, number 1, and we're also confirming that they are aware of the consequences. So they cannot take a U-turn after. They cannot say we didn't know about it. So have you created a fear factor among the management? If even they're not frightened, then what will you do? You will issue a qualified opinion. So how many actions have we took? Make a summary of the actions. The first action you will take in the exam paper is what? Make a summary. You will discuss the issue with management. Whatever the issue is in the exam paper, please link the issue with exam paper, yellow. Link the issue with exam paper. Don't write generic. Link it with exam paper. Discuss the issue. What is the issue we are discussing? IFRS 5, asset held for sale, discontinued operation, adjustment. Discuss the issue with management. Name the management, Myron Company Management. Make it specific. So discuss the issue. Which issue? Write it down. IFRS 5. Make a sentence proper. With management, which management? Can you put the name of the company, Myron Company Management, to make it more specific, everyone? So discuss the issue is the first action. Discuss the issue for what? To adjust the financial statement, number 1. Second action, if management refuse, then what will you do? If management refuse, then you will discuss it with TCWG. Agree? If both of them refuse, then you will inform of the consequences. You will inform them of the consequences if the adjustment is not made. So after discussing with both the levels of management, still if the problem is there, you will inform of the consequence if the adjustment is not made to the audit report. Inform of the consequences to audit report, sorry. if adjustments are not made. And finally, request a written representation if management remains firm. If the management remains firm on stance of not amending financial statements at all. So how to write actions? Can you see the way I wrote actions 1, 2, 3, 4 in a proper manner, but I made a summary as well? Will you be able to remember actions in a reporting question? Is this easy? Discussing the problems with management, then TCWG, informing them of the implication to the audit report, and finally taking a representation letter. 4 marks. But try to link that with case study. Try to use the word Myron company management, Myron company, those charged with governance. Try to use the word of the issue, try to specify the issue rather than just using the word issue. So is everyone clear what are actions? What is the purpose of action? How you write actions in a reporting question? Is everyone clear of that? So actions are written like sentences, right? You write them like sentences. So is that clear with word action? Okay. Are you clear with the word impact on report, impact on opinion? Because you have to do this in this question as well. You have an impact on report in this question. So how many marks you had? 15 marks. And in the 15 marks, you have 2 problems. And in every problem, you first need to comment on the matters, then you need to tell the actions, then you need to tell the impact on report. Then you open up the second issue, first time adoption of IFRS 16. You comment on the matters, you write further actions, and you write the impact on report. 15 marks, is that a lot? Because I think I think almost like 15 marks have been consumed just on the first issue. If I write all the 4 actions, and I write the problems I had in sale of division, I think I can easily take 10 plus marks. So you can write even less because you need to write on 2 issues. Or you can accumulate the actions together. Do you believe the actions will remain the same for the first issue and the second issue? For both the issues, you will be discussing with management, then discussing with TCWG, then informing them of the consequence, and then requesting a written representation. So is it better to write the actions together for both rather than repeating them again and again? Is that clear? So what should be an ideal structure of an answer? I think the ideal structure of an answer should be like this. The ideal structure of the answer. If you're writing the answer for this paper, then the ideal structure would be that you first put the heading sale of division like this, and you then put the heading first time adoption of IFRS 16 as the second heading. Right? And then under the sale of division, how many things will you do? You will write the matters for sale of division, and you will write the impact on report for sale of division. Then under the first time adoption of IFRS 16, you will write the matters and you will write the impact on report. Now, when the answer ends for first time adoption and when the answer ends for sale of division, then you will write the last heading, which is accumulative heading, further actions. And these are further actions for both issues, right? Because there will be repetition. So don't write the same don't write the same actions for sale of division, 4 marks, and the same for first time adoption. You will not get 8 marks, right? You will not get 8 marks because you're repeating the same actions. So are you discussing with the management both the issues together? 1 mark. Are you discussing with those charged with governance both the issues together? 1 mark. Are you informing them of the implication? 1 mark. And are you requesting a representation for both? Yes, 1 mark. You will not get 8 marks, others. You will only get 4 marks, right? Because actions are accumulative. Remember, actions are accumulative. Actions are accumulative, not uh, actions are accumulative to both issues. Is that clear to everyone? So how many marks out of 15 we can keep for actions on a safe side? If we have a 15 marks question, how many marks we can keep for actions on a safe side? Like 4 marks out of 15 marks. So how many marks we are left with writing on matters and impact on report? Out of 15 marks, if 4 is kept on actions, so we have technically 11 marks, right? So 11 marks will be spread on first time adoption and sale of division. Now you have 11 marks, right? Either you keep 6 marks for sale of division and 5 marks for first time adoption, or you keep 7 marks for sale of division and 4 marks for first time adoption. It's totally up to you. But how many things you need to do under sale of division? Matters and impact on report. And how many things you need to do under first time adoption? Matters and impact on report. But please don't repeat actions 2 times. Only write action once. Are you clear with the structure of the answer? How would you go about with the answer? I hope there might be some of the students in the webinar who have attempted this question in the actual December 2020 exam and you failed, you flunked, and you're preparing for March 21 exams. This was such an easy question. IFRS 5 and first time adoption of IFRS 16. So have this last 30 minutes help you with insights about how to read the requirements and what is the literal meaning of the word comment on matters and what is the literal meaning of the word implication for the audit report? What is the literal meaning of the word further actions? Are you becoming clear with requirements? If you are clear with requirements, does reading the case becomes easier? Does writing an answer becomes easier? But there is a constraint of the webinar, right? But I hope within the constraint of the webinar, you have been able to understand the September, December 20 question and you will do it yourself. You will make a proper answer for sale of division and you will make a proper answer for first time adoption. And then you will write 4 actions to make up a 15 marks answer. Right? I hope I explained actions well to you. I hope you're all clear on the actions. I hope you know what is the flow of actions. First the management, then the TCWG, those charged with governance, then the consequence on the report, the third action, and then the final 4th action is a written representation. I hope you will remember that, right? A written representation. 4 actions. Management, TCWG, consequence for the audit report, and a written representation. I hope you were clear on how we went on sale of division. I hope you are sound on the accounting treatment of sale of division. Every paragraph I wrote on sale of division, I hope you were clear on that. Any problems with sale of division, any issues with sale of division, you are more than welcome to discuss them on the WhatsApp group, right? Now, just before I wind up, the next few minutes are very important because I want to make you clear on the issues you face in exam paper with reporting. I hope you're all ready for the last thing, which is now in front of your screen, which I have been emphasizing again and again over the last 2 days. The recent examiner report. I have covered the recent questions, right? I think I've covered the question 2 of the same exam yesterday. I covered the question 1 of the same exam on day 1. And I've covered the question 3 today. A part of it, not full, because we don't have time. But have I covered all the 3 questions of the latest exam over the last 3 days? So September, December 20 paper is now finished. Tomorrow we have a different agenda. Day after tomorrow we have a different agenda. But please ensure that you spend time on the examiner report you have in front of you, which is a different looking examiner report, a very lengthy examiner report. Just on the question we attempted now, reporting. 6 pages of examiner report on that question. 6 pages, and you read it, it will give you a self-appraisal. Now, which question were we attempting? We were attempting the question number 3 and the first part, not the second part. So should I click on the question number 1A, question number 3A, 15 marks? See, if I click on it, I'll reach the page. Now, can you see this question in front? This is exactly what we were doing. Requirement A for 15 marks, comment on the completion matters and evaluate the implication. Can we read the examiner criticism in the next 15 minutes? Will that be helpful to you? Will you be able to understand? Because we have solved the sale of division, right? I will not do the comment for IFRS 16 because we have not done it. But please do it yourself. I'm reading. Please keep your focus on this. Part 1 of the question is focused on resolving the outstanding potential issues in order to able to determine the form of the auditor report which should be issued. The first of the issue arises from how the directors have treated the scientific publishing division, which is in the process of being sold to a competitor. In the audit file, it is noted that the company is at the advanced stage. The company is at the advanced stage in the selling process and is expected to be complete in less than 1 month. So that was the condition of IFRS 5 to recognize it as a discontinued operation and asset held for sale. There are two problems arising from the way the directors have treated this in the financial statement. One is that the impairment review on the division has used value in use as a recoverable amount and not the higher agreed selling price. So there is a material misstatement in relation to the valuation of the assets of the division. Have you found this problem? That one of the problem is how you recognize the impairment, and mistakenly you treated it at the value in use rather than at the fair value less the cost to sell, which was higher. So we found it, we found the materiality of this, and we commented on this, right? This was the first issue. The second issue is the lack of disclosures relating to discontinued operation. So have we focused on this when I was discussing the answer with you? The second problem was the disclosure of a discontinued operation because it was a cash generating unit. Information given in the scenario state that the company does not use a revaluation policy. This is intended to allow candidates to note that any impairment loss. How much was the impairment loss? Technically $3 million, but management mistakenly recorded a $4 million. This is intended to allow candidates to note that any impairment loss would be charged to the statement of profit and loss so that they don't lose time discussing the allocation of impairment to the revaluation reserve. Will there be a revaluation reserve if the company is not using a revaluation policy? So should you adjust the impairment loss from the revaluation reserve, or should you adjust the impairment loss directly to the P&L? Are you getting the criticism of the examiner? So if any student wastes time on revaluation reserve, you're wrong because the company does not have a revaluation policy. So the impairment loss will directly go to the P&L. Is that correct? Next point. The company was also a single company rather than a group company. Therefore, candidates did not need to spend time speculating over the value of goodwill. No need of recognizing no issues relating to the goodwill because it was a single company, right? The next. The second potential issue was IFRS 16. Please read the IFRS 16 on your own. I'm not reading IFRS 16 because we didn't solve it. But when you solve IFRS 16 at home, will you connect your answer with examiner report on IFRS 16? Will you do that, everyone? So please read the next paragraph yourself on IFRS 16, right? I'm skipping this. I'm coming to the next paragraph. When approaching a question like this, which is in green, can you see the highlighted green paragraph in front of your screen, everyone? Okay. When approaching a question like this, candidates should assess the appropriateness of the accounting treatment. Comment on the matters. When approaching a question like this, which question? Comment on the matter. Candidates should assess the appropriateness of the accounting treatment. Have you commented on the accounting treatment? True, false? Have you commented on the accounting treatment? True, false? Good. Comma. Justifying any amendments needed to the financial statement. Have you commented on the amendment needed to the financial statement? As in like what is understated and what is overstated? Right? Full stop. They should also consider the materiality of the amendments. Have you considered that? So is the examiner giving you the breakdown of how to comment on the matter in this paragraph? And then you say, what's the purpose of reading the examiner reports? I have no idea why you people don't read examiner reports. Why? Are you finding them productive? Does the examiner reports give you the way of writing answers? Is it not a very important paragraph rather than you ask what to write in comment on the matters? A lot of time I've seen students 1 week before exam, they ask me, what does comment on matter means? That means you've not read the examiner report. Now, do you believe this paragraph in front of your screen here is a very important paragraph because it's giving you how to write comment on the matters? So do you trust we have covered the right comment on the matters in the right manner today in the lecture? So are you finding the examiner reports productive? Go to the next paragraph. Generally, candidates identified that the scientific publishing division met the criteria of an asset held for sale and were able to discuss the impact of this on the statement of financial position. So examiner is happy. It was less common for candidates to discuss the fact that the division would therefore be a discontinued operation and the impact it has on the P&L. Candidates also often identified the valuation error and were able to obtain marks. So examiner says the student were good on the valuation error, mostly. The students were good on asset held for sale, but the students didn't identify that it was even a discontinued operation. Was it a separate cash generating unit? So should it be identified as a discontinued operation even? Right? So examiner is telling us where the student went right and where the student went wrong. The next, the treatment of the prior year adjustment tended to lead to one of the two approaches. The candidates who noted that the audit team has already confirmed the validity of the lease amount. Okay, we are not dealing with lease, right? Leave aside the lease, sorry. We're not covering lease. Lease is to be read by you. Okay, next page. Having determined the correct accounting treatment and the materiality of the misstatement. Okay, this is again about lease. I'm skipping the lease paragraph, right? Please read the lease paragraphs yourself. Come to the next paragraph. Can you see another paragraph in green? Can you see another paragraph in green? All of you? Waiting for your answers? Okay, great. Look at this paragraph. This is about actions. Candidates who remained focused on actions were able to score highly here. So if you focused on action, can you score 4 out of 15 marks? Is that a significant number of marks? So examiner is saying the students who focused on actions score highly here. Again, many candidates resorted to listing out audit procedures, many of which would have already been performed by this stage of the audit. Are we at the completion stage of the audit? Can we perform procedures at a completion stage of audit? Actions. So every time when a question comes on a completion stage of the audit, the examiner asks you to write actions, right? Not procedures. You need to understand that. And are you clear what is the purpose of a action and how you write them? And is there a difference between writing a procedure? The purpose of the procedure is to find evidence. Many candidates also treated the requirement like a matter and an evidence style requirement, listing out evidence which was expected to be on the file rather than thinking about the actions. I hope if you have studied effectively for the AAA paper and you have watched my previous webinar, there is a question which comes on evidence. Comment on the matters and explain the evidence in the working paper file. So examiner is saying a lot of students confuse the actions with a question which comes on matters and evidence in the past paper, listing out evidence. Was the examiner asking for evidence? Was the examiner asking for procedures? Or was the examiner asking for actions? Are these three different things in the AAA paper? All of you. Evidence is a different thing in the AAA paper, right? Procedure is a different thing in the AAA paper. And actions is a different thing in the AAA paper. I've covered evidence in the previous webinars. I've covered procedures in the previous webinars. You can watch them. So examiner is saying students confused themselves. The distinction is important and candidates listing out procedures at the stage of completion demonstrates a lack of understanding of the stages of audit. How can you perform procedures at a completion stage of audit when you are wrapping up the audit? Do you believe procedures are performed when you are doing the field work? So examiner is heavily criticizing students, right? That you don't know the stages of audit. Then you come to the next part 2. We didn't solve the we solved the part 2, which was about the opinion. The part 2 of the requirement asks candidates to consider opinion if none of the adjustments are made to the financial statements. Candidates almost universally assess each misstatement in turn rather than in combination, which would be the case if none of the adjustments are made. Now, I hope when you look at the situation here in the question again, if I can just take you to the question paper again, look at the requirement. Evaluate the implication for the audit report if no adjustments are made. Is the examiner talking about in aggregation here? In the last question we did, the examiner was asking for the implication on the audit opinion for individual. Was the examiner using the word individual in the September 18 paper? But over here, the examiner is saying evaluate the implication for the audit report if no adjustments are made. Means both of them, right? If both adjustments are not made, what will happen? If the management fails to make the adjustment of IFRS 16, what will happen? And if the management fails to recognize the adjustment of sale of division, what will happen? So is the examiner asking for what will be an accumulative effect on the audit report if both adjustments are not made? Is that clear to all of you? Evaluate the implication if no adjustments are made, right? Clear, everyone? Right, so you can do it both ways, right? You can do it both ways. You can first show the adjustment of the issue 1 and you can then show the adjustment of the issue 2 as I guided you, or you can show the adjustments in an accumulative manner. If both issues are material, will both issues result into a qualified opinion? Suppose the issue number 1 is material and the issue number 2 is material. So accumulatively, what will be the impact on the audit report? A qualified opinion. Is that clear? So you can make one paragraph for the adjustment on the audit report. And if you want to make two separate paragraphs, one for issue 1, one for issue 2, you can do it. No issues with that, right? So you can do it the way I guided you in the session, the structure of the answer, that you write the issue number 1 matters, issue number 1 impact on report. Then you write the issue number 2 matters, issue number 2 impact on report, and then you write the further actions. That is also fine. Or if you do the impact on report in accumulative, like the actions, as we did the actions accumulatively, you can do the impact on report accumulatively. You combine both the issues, that okay, this is the material issue, this is the material issue, thus there is a qualified opinion. You can do that way as well, whichever strategy you want to follow, right? Okay, back to the criticism of the examiner. It is extremely hard for a candidate to assess the pervasiveness of the number of misstatements. Candidate needs to note whether the requirement asks for the implication of each issue separately or in aggregate. If separate consideration is needed, this will be clearly stated in the question. Whenever the examiner asks you, whenever the examiner wants you to write the individual impact, examiner will use that word very carefully. Was the examiner using the word individual very carefully in the last question, September 18, we did today? So the examiner is saying that you should read the question carefully, whether the examiner wants you to write an individual impact on the report or an aggregate impact on the report. Is that clear? So will you read the question carefully? Is the examiner asking you to write an individual impact on the report or an aggregate impact on the report? The last thing, candidate seems to struggle with the topic audit report in journal and often use outdated or ambiguous terminology for reporting. Common reasons why candidates do not perform well on this type of question stem from a lack of knowledge. Have I been emphasizing that in the first 30 minutes of the webinar, that you need the right knowledge? Because examiner is very harsh. He's saying candidates seems to struggle with the topic of audit reports in journal and often use outdated or ambiguous terminologies for reporting. Common reasons why candidates do not perform well on this type of question stem from a lack of knowledge. And I emphasized on that at the beginning of my session, knowledge. So should you assure that you have the right knowledge by reading the examiner articles or by reading the books, that you don't come under the criticism of the examiner that you have outdated knowledge, you have ambiguous knowledge. So please ensure you have the right knowledge for a reporting question. Examiner is very worried about it. The next, Many also demonstrated a lack of appreciation as to how the material misstatement arise, particularly that lack of disclosure can also give rise to a material misstatement. Do you appreciate that a lack of disclosure also give rise to a material misstatement? Or it's only the debit and credits? It's only the debit and credits, or even a lack of disclosure also give rise to a material misstatement. So examiner is saying you messed up. A lot of time the student don't recognize that a lack of disclosure is also a material misstatement, not just a debit and credit. Last, one problem commonly seen when describing audit opinion is candidates referring to the impact of the misstatement on the audit opinion as a modification, but then not specifying which modification is appropriate. I've seen so many times that the student says this will result in a modified opinion. Examiner is not happy with that. See, examiner is saying a lot of time the student says impact of a misstatement on the audit opinion as a modification, but not specifying which modification is appropriate. Full stop. A lot of time the student writes this way in the exam paper. See this. A lot of time the student write this way, which is what the examiner is trying to highlight here. If I can just take a new page, this is what the examiner is saying in this comment. You will say, for example, this is the issues, right? This is the issues the students do in a reporting question. A lot of time when the student is writing a reporting answer, what they do is that they will say, for example, they will say, this is a material misstatement, whatever that is. This is a material misstatement and thus result in a modified opinion. Full stop. Examiner is not happy with this jargon. How many of you use this? Examiner is saying this is not right. This is absolutely cross. This is absolutely cross. Examiner is saying this is the way you should write it. This is the correct way. You should tell this is a material misstatement. Okay, fine. Blah, blah, blah. You keep writing after. And thus results in a qualified opinion. Thus results in a qualified opinion due to a material misstatement, due to whatever. Modified opinion is a very ambiguous term because there are so many types of modified opinion. Adverse opinion is a modified opinion. Qualified opinion is a modified opinion. Disclaimer of opinion is a modified opinion. So if you say it will result in a modified opinion, how will the examiner know which opinion are you referring to? Are you clear? So please refrain from using a modified opinion. Specify the modified opinion, right? Specify the modified opinion. Are you getting this, everyone? Specify the modified opinion in exam. Don't use the jargon modified opinion. Is that clear? So will you classify the modified opinion? How many types of modified opinions are there, everyone? How many types of modified opinions are there? 3. Good answer, Tongai. Very good. Not 4. 3. Adverse, disclaimer, qualified. 3. Why 4? There are 4 types of opinion. My question is not 4 types of opinion. My question is how many types of modified opinions? How many types of modified opinion? 3, not 4. If I asked you how many types of opinions are there, then the answer 4 was right. See, this is the problem with all of you. You don't read the question carefully in exam paper and you don't listen to the question of the tutor carefully in the webinar. So you have the same problem. Right? Let's go back to the examiner report where we were. So candidates are expected to describe the 4 types of opinions. Generally, the 4 types of opinions, right? 4 types of opinion. Qualified on the basis of a material misstatement. Qualified on the basis of an inability to obtain evidence. Can we break qualified opinions into 2 categories? Qualified on the basis of a material misstatement and qualified on the basis of an inability to obtain evidence? Do you know that? You can give a qualified opinion when you are unable to obtain evidence, right? You can give a qualified opinion when there is a material misstatement, right? So examiner is saying are qualified on the basis of a material misstatement, qualified on the basis of inability to obtain evidence, an adverse opinion, or a disclaimer of opinion. So you need to specify the opinion in exam. You cannot just use the word modified opinion. You need to tell examiner it will be a qualified opinion because it's a material misstatement. It will be a qualified opinion because the auditor was unable to obtain evidence. So will you specify these statements? Is the examiner report productive? Is the examiner report criticizing you in a constructive manner? Will you develop a habit of reading the examiner report for a question you are attempting at home? Have you seen how detailed this is? Are you finding how detailed it is? The next and last thing from the examiner report. The use of terms modified, or except for are not sufficiently detailed to attract marks. So the use of terms modified or except for are not good words to use. A lot of times the student use the word except for. Do you? A lot of times the student use the word except for a qualified opinion. How many of you have a habit of that? Right? So is the examiner liking the word except for to be used in exam paper? Is the examiner liking it? No. He's saying are not sufficiently detailed. So please use the word qualified opinion as a very proper jargon. Don't use the word modified opinion. Specify the opinion. Don't use the word except for opinion rather than use the word qualified opinion. Is that clear? So please read this examiner report in a very careful manner, and the paragraph still is continued after that. Candidates are also expected to evaluate the opinion. Please read that yourself. How you evaluate an opinion. Candidates often struggle with the concept of pervasiveness. Examiner has also explained in the examiner report what is pervasiveness, because a lot of times the students have an unclear concept on material and pervasive. They're very good on material, but they're very bad on pervasive. So examiner has also criticized the students struggling with pervasiveness and has covered that in the examiner report. And then in the last case, the examiner went on explaining that there appear to be significant numbers of candidates who consider the definition of pervasive to be something which would change a profit to a loss. And then he criticized that later. That it's not just this. The student believe only if a profit turns to loss that is pervasive. No, it is just one example. It is just one example that if a profit turns to loss, that misstatement will be pervasive. But is that the maximum definition of pervasiveness? No. Pervasiveness can be another misstatement for which the profit doesn't turn to loss, but it's very significant. It's very significant. The percentage for pervasiveness I've covered in the previous webinars, right? It's 60%, ideally 60% or more of the total assets or of the revenue or of the profit. So if you're finding a percentage on a calculator and it's roughly 60% or more of the total assets, profit or revenue, you will treat that misstatement as pervasive. Is that clear? I've covered that in the previous webinar, right? And if any misstatement converts the profit to loss, that is also pervasive. So examiner is a bit worried about pervasiveness here. But have you seen how constructive this examiner report is? I don't have time to read it all, but will you read at home for the entire question number 3? First, solve the question number 3 yourself. Then reconcile your question number 3 with examiner report. See where you went wrong. If you write something in your answer which the examiner is criticizing, will that give you a good learning not to repeat it, not to repeat it on the day of the exam? Suppose if you have a habit of using the word except for, will you come out of the habit today? Suppose you have a habit of writing modified opinion. Will you come out of the habit of doing that from today? So examiner reports are constructive, right? Because they tell you the bad things and the good things. So if you have a bad habit, will the examiner rectify your bad habit before the exam day? But what if you don't read the examiner report? You will go to the exam hall with the same bad habit and you will fail. Is everyone clear of that? So will you rectify your bad habits? No, please, Umar Khan, just write qualified opinion. This is very diplomatic that you write both. You say qualified except for. No, simply say qualified opinion. It's a better jargon. Okay, so I hope you have a productive learning today from the webinar. In time constraint, I went over the 2 questions to drill the marking scheme, to drill the question requirements. I did guided you about the sources of knowledge, and more importantly, the reinforcement of examiner report. I hope you found these examiner reports as a productive documents, and you will make a habit of reading them in the next 3 weeks before exam for every question you do. So I hope you had a productive learnings from the day 3, the agenda. My presentation, which have been shared with you, cover numerous aspects of audit report. You can go through that. This is a valuable resource which has been shared with you in the webinar. Because of the constraint of time, I cannot cover everything, but there are several points which have been given on my presentation, which I covered in my lecture, but a summary of that is given, which you can go through. And the marking scheme summary is also given in my presentation as well. So please ensure that whatever you have learned from the day 3, you effectively apply that over the next few days, and you polish yourself up for reporting area. 6 questions to practice on reporting, right? And if you practice 6 questions on reporting with reading of examiner report, trust me, you will write a wonderful reporting answer. 6 questions drafting with reading of examiner report. Is that difficult? Just 6 days. If you do one question on a daily basis with examiner report, 6 days, you're done with it. Doing one question of a reporting on a daily basis with examiner report, is that difficult? Even if you have a very difficult schedule, you work for 7 to 8 hours a day, you can still do one question on reporting with examiner report, right? So I hope you will idealize a strategy, and a strategy which will help you pass. Right. Just before I conclude, I would be looking forward to your feedback for the session day 3 today. How was it? Was it productive? Was it insightful? Did it give you your criticism? Were you able to identify your weaknesses, your issues, your problems during the 3 hours? So please keep dropping your feedback. And we have a very important agenda tomorrow, other assignments. Now, I will be covering other assignments on day 4 as well as on day 5 because there's so many. And we have 2 other assignments tomorrow, which will be covered. So we'll have a very, very important session tomorrow on other assignments, day 4. I hope you will not miss the day 4, right? And I hope every day is helping you with problems, identifying of the problems, right? That's very important. Right. Other assignments are spread on 2 days, right? Day 4 and day 5, because there's so many. So you'll get a very good exposure of other assignments, right? Okay, then that is it for the webinar today, day 3. It's time to sign off. Wish you all best of luck for your upcoming exams. Thank you for joining the live webinar and taking your time out. This is a valuable webinars being organized by ACCA Pakistan. You should appreciate them as well. And you should appreciate that these are being run free of cost for all of you as an additional resource to help you pass your exam papers in a productive manner. Have a nice day, all of you. This is time to sign off. I'm Kashif Kamran. I'll meet you back tomorrow with day 4, a very important day. Till then, take very good care of yourself, study effectively, and I'll see you all live tomorrow. Goodbye and Allah Hafiz.